This is a best of 3, 100% guaranteed, guys. So there was some confusion with that very first game of the day. I assumed it was best of 1 because round of 16 is normally best of 1 and the quarterfinals are where the best of 3s begin, but I guess the brackets are unique and different here for Starbo. So my apologies on the misleading information, but this is guaranteed 100% a best of 3 starting up right now in the quarterfinals. Spawning in the lower left corner of the map, he's red, he's Protoss from the team SMI, it is Shox, an American player. And his opponent in the top left, green and Terran, it is Beastyqt. And we see Shox has a bit of little bit of shenanigans in him today. Okay. So I told everyone in the chat I'd cater this cast a little bit more towards the unknowing, so I'm going to apologize in advance for those of you who are very familiar with the game. You're going to find what I'm saying boring at some points, but since we have some new viewers who've never seen Starbo before, let's try and get them inclined with the game. So the very first thing to note, guys, is you'll notice there's one geyser, not two, and a lot of weirdly placed mineral patches. This is because everything mines faster and more and better. So for example, instead of 3 gas per trip, you get 8. The minerals mine like gold minerals in regular StarCraft 2, and quite frankly, expansions are not nearly as necessary, but obviously will still slingshot you forward in the game. Protoss are probably the most dynamically different race in Starbo. Terran is more or less the same with just different units, whereas Protoss has been reworked with a huge overhaul. You'll notice the Nexus doesn't have energy because you have to actually upgrade the Chrono Boost ability after building the gateway. It's called the Cadrian Crystal upgrade, and there we go, now starting it. This allows 2 different abilities, the Chrono Boost and the Rift. Rift is kind of like the Mothership Core recall from regular StarCraft 2. You can select up to 5 units and recall them back to your Nexus, but in doing so, it has a very, very, very long arming phase. Like, you recall, but it doesn't recall immediately. It takes like a good, 15 seconds before you can even move any of those units and use them again. Stalkers, not out of the game, but kind of a later tier unit, not nearly as effective early on as you would hope. They do get blink still, and they still do some pretty decent damage, but Dragoons have replaced them, and that's what we see coming out right away. This is a very common opener in TVP to get some Dragoons early on. You'll get the range bonus on them as well. So Dragoons have a pretty nice range advantage over Marines with that +2, but Marines have also been neutered a little bit here in Starbo. They only have range 4. You can upgrade barrel stabilizers for Marines that will make them a little bit better with their range. It gives them +1, but for context, guys, with this Singularity Charge upgrade coming up for the Dragoons, even Marines inside a bunker cannot reach a Dragoon firing upon it. So you will see a bunker go down, and BC will try and hold the line with it, but the Dragoons are going to outrange it for quite some time, at least until he's ready to rock and roll. Now, I'm talking about Marines, I'm talking about barrel stabilizers, but typically what you'll want to do as a Terran player, get that factory up, get a siege tank out, and have that ready to fight the Dragoons. It's got a really fast attack speed, it hits incredibly hard, and it doesn't actually come equipped with siege mode. You have to research siege mode, but that's a whole nother can of worms, and not that big of a deal. Because an unsieged tank is incredibly potent in Starbo, especially versus Protoss players. Now, it's worth noting, Terran players have also gained a Chrono Boost-like ability. The Chrono Boost going down right now, it's your regular Chrono Boost. It speeds up production by 50%, whatever. But if you put it on a gateway, it increases production by 100%. So it's very, very fast if you put a Chrono Boost on a gateway. This is to make up for the fact that Warp Tech has been moved to like Tier 3. And quite frankly, even when you use Warp Tech, it's not too effective. It's got a very long cooldown, much longer than actually building a unit. Combined with the fact that it takes a long time for the units to, again, activate upon warping in. It's not exactly your go-to tech choice. In fact, you will see a lot of players actually shy away from it entirely. As predicted, though, Siege Tank is going to come out lickety-split here out of Beastyqt. Siege Mode is being researched. Siege Tanks have a much longer cooldown in Siege Mode, guys, in Starbo than they do in regular StarCraft, but they also hit for like 75 or something a shot, so much, much more damage goes out. SCV that's vigilantly trying to scout will finally find his opponent here in the lower left corner of the map. And as stated before, Marines sadly can't quite reach the Dragoons, so trying to repair this bunker to keep it up. Tank it up on the high ground. He could bring it forward to fight the Dragoons, but what he wants to do is put it up here safe and sound in order to keep it safe for siege mode. So basically just kind of holding position for the time being, knowing his SCVs can out-repair the Dragoons for quite some time. Really not in any terrible, terrible danger. One Dragoon actually gets in range of the siege tank, and he does need to back up just a tad. Siege mode about halfway done. Second tank out. He could honestly, again, he could really fight this head on if he wanted to, but just trying to play it a little bit safe. Not sorry at all. It's a best of 3. The last thing you want to do is throw everything away, and Shox has double expanded behind this. This is kind of cool, but equally silly at the same time. Dragoons are going to move right on in here. Wow, that was really bold, actually. Almost lost one of his Dragoons, but got a tank for it, so not too bad. They're out of Shox. Siege mode is finished, and finally can start thwarting these Dragoons backwards. So the double expand is very interesting, to say the least. Where did Beastie scan? Okay, he's looking for tech in the main. You want to make sure there wasn't going to be a Reaver follow-up to this. Now, what is following up is that third Nexus coming up really quick. Normally in StarCraft 2, you don't see Protoss take this third Nexus. Even with the Mothership Core, which is not in Starbo, it's still a very risky thing to do. It's very expensive and hard to defend. But in Starbo, your expansions are not only, how do I phrase this? Your expansions are more expendable, I guess. It's not as big of a deal to hold on to this base, but of course you get a big benefit from mining from it. But Beastyqt shouldn't have any reason. I mean, BC might come down here later, but there's no reason to scan this. That's the advantage of taking this absurdly early third. Almost as good as taking a ninja base. But catching the SCV, trying to move out to scout. Dragoons have set up a nice little soft contain in this regard. The depots coming down are definitely a little bit worried about some zealots on the front lines, but of course we know that that's not going to come. And Spider Mine's being researched. So again, touching base back to the more amateur side of Starbo, guys. It's gotten rid of Hellions. You can't build those out of factories anymore, but replaced them and brought back the nostalgic Vulture. It's an incredibly effective unit in harass. Spider Mines are really cool. They act like Widow Mines in the effect that they lay on the ground just like a Widow Mine. They'll attack ground units like a Widow Mine. They can't shoot up, but you can also shoot them before they fully arm. So you can kill a Widow Mine before it actually has a chance to hit you. Which, it's not too bad against some races, but against Protoss, one of the biggest disadvantages they have is, of course, the fact that they have a very slow attack speed on most of their units. And scanning fervently, BC doesn't quite find this third base. Again, this is a very bold, a very odd base to take. Now, one thing that you'll notice, too, is, I don't believe he's researched it yet. No. He's still looking for more bases. Looking all over the map, trying to confirm where and what Shox is doing. But Shox is just playing pretty standard. I mean, behind that third Nexus. And because of this, right, on the upgrade step still, because of this, it's going to be a little bit rough for BC. You can play off of two bases for a long time. This is not like StarCraft where a Terran player on two bases is kind of screwed. He'll be okay for quite some time. But with lots of factories down, and Mech being his weapon of choice, he's going to have Vultures coming out en masse in a moment. They've got their Spider-Mine upgrades available. That is one of the biggest ways to get map control as a Terran player. You just litter the field with Spider-Mines. They're free after you get that upgrade. One Vulture can put down 3. You just put them all over the map. They provide vision. They provide damage. It's a great zoning mechanism as well. But more importantly than this, we've got Ion Thrusters coming out. If you guys don't know what Ion Thrusters does, it makes Vultures so fast they can outrun Speedlings with a 5.2 move speed. These are going to be very good for worker harass, as Vultures can, well, with upgrades, easily two-shot workers. So you send a couple Vultures in. Beastyqt, well known for his drop Vultures. There's no medevacs, but there are drop ships that have been brought back to the game. It's nothing too different, really. And this is another advantage to that higher income. You can actually afford to do tanks like this off of two bases. Almost gets the Observer, does get the Observer. Well handled there. There's still another one in the main that's seeing exactly what's going on. And BC's dropping the overcharge ability. This is what I was talking about earlier, guys. It's kind of like Terran get a bit of a... They drop down what looks like the supply depot, but it's actually going to act like a chrono boost and increase production. Shox's army supply is nowhere out of control, and he doesn't have any upgrades going for him right now. That is something I've noticed in Starbo quite a lot, where upgrades kind of have taken a back seat. In StarCraft 2, upgrades are a big deal. You engage an army with 3-3 versus 1-1, you don't stand a chance. But in Starbo, you see people very reluctant to get those upgrades. And for good reason. They're quite expensive, and honestly, most of the time, army is what matters the most. So charge in here to the front lines, put down some Spider Mines, waiting to try and arm them. I love these turrets coming down as well. They're going to randomly catch observers, but also provide a little bit of zoning mechanisms, plus the fact that sentinels can be a huge pain in the ass. We don't see any sentinels being made at the moment, but they are quite nice with that null ward ability. Anyway, Siege Tank Siege up, trying to get in position on this line. Vulture's trying to kite around these zealots. Spider-Mine's going off left and right. A massacre going down and some splash damage going to help kill some of these tanks. The Dragoons pushing forward, though. There might not be enough here for Beastie on the front lines initially, but the Siege Tanks are just shelling away from behind the Vultures. However, as the Vultures and Goliaths die out, so do a lot of the Dragoons. So, continuing to push here for Shox, not out of the question. Spider-Mine's still doing a great job of picking off some of these Zealots, but the tanks, again, taking some very heavy pressure from that splash damage. And honestly, Shox has broken the line here. Beastyqt almost out of tanks at this point. There's about 2 remaining. He's got his reinforcements on the way, but is this going to be enough? Dragoons being pushed back once again. But this is also another thing that I really enjoy out of Starbo, guys. It's kind of like a tug-of-war where you just flood units forward. You didn't lose the game because you lost that engagement, but you had to give up ground. I mean, Beastie's still in this, but not exactly in a commanding lead. How many gateways are currently available here for Shox? 8 in total, just pumping units across the map. But here comes those Vulture unbuys I was talking about earlier. With 3 bases available to him, taking a little bit of heat here, it's not going to be the end of the world. Dragoons will clean this up eventually, but of course for BC, he's just doing some hit and run, trying to do what he can, pick up as many probes as zealots and what have you on the way. Now a lot of you might be wondering, like, why didn't he just save the spider mines and put a bunch of spider mines down in the mineral lines? For good reason. Spider mines cannot activate on other workers or other vultures. I don't know why. If someone could explain to me, that'd be cool. I don't know the mechanics behind it, but basically workers and vultures cannot trigger other spider mines. But alright, Warp Prism coming out too. Sorry, I had the hiccups. Just trying to fight those back so I wasn't going like on stream. For BC, taking in engagements has been a little bit rough. Shox has been making the right moves. Zealots have the charge upgrade. If you don't know what Zealot charge does in this, you'll notice Zealots are moving a little bit like they're on crack. They don't physically charge like they do in regular StarCraft 2, but they do move incredibly fast. Running through these lines, dragging the spider mines on top of the tanks, friendly fire going off like crazy. But this time the spider mines actually keep the Zealots back enough that the tank line doesn't get broken by the Dragoons. Following this up with a secondary push, Shox is going to throw away some more units to try and make this happen. Going to take out some of the Vultures on the way, but BC in the meantime has actually gotten into his opponent's mineral lines while this was going on. Throwing down some spider mines to zone out the army, not so much the workers, 23 workers killed. But on 3 bases, Shox is not in any immediate danger. Definitely taking some harass to his economy, something that BC's not had to worry about, but BC hasn't been able to establish a third. So in this regard, I would almost go as far as to tag them as even, but still, BC trying to take that third, securing it up here towards the north. Command center on the way. He's finally set up a really nice position outside of his base, and I don't know how long I've had the upgrades tab up there. Sorry about that, guys. A couple spider mines going to go off here. As we see, they do hit for quite a bit. Not exactly a game-ending amount, but damage gets done and picks off a couple Dragoons with it. Constantly scanning here. I'm surprised he hasn't gone for the... There's an upgrade you guys can get for the command centers, by the way, if you don't know. What it does is it makes it so scan no longer costs energy, but instead it has 2 charges and lasts a little bit shorter duration. It's kind of more effective if you're trying to use a lot of chrono boosts, or in this case overcharges, as it's called on the Terran side of things. But a ton of spider mines coming down to zone out for these tanks. I'm loving the usage of these spider mines. Again, they're not really killing the army per se of Shox, but they're keeping them zoned back. Picks up in the Warp Prism. I've never seen anyone do that before. That's pretty cool to avoid the Spider-Man fire. However, unfortunately, it will not quite be enough. A couple more tanks will go down, but BC's line should be strong. The Vulture reinforcements combined with the fact that he's got a lot of Goliaths help zone this out. Dragoons ironically getting caught due to that wall in there. A little unfortunate. Goliaths starting to shell away at this wall. So Shox going to have to give up this base, however, has established another one down here towards the south. Not in a lot of danger of being out of this game just yet. More scans going down, picking off the Observers. The Observers get an upgrade, by the way, which Shox has not gone for. It's called Phase Shield. It's kind of cool. What it does is it makes it so the Observers they can't be auto-targeted, if that makes sense. Like, if you scan, you can't just A-move to pick off an Observer. You have to physically target it, which is really cool in my opinion. And, oh no, these transferring probes. Nope. JFK as they turn around. A couple spider mines is going to go off on one of these zealots. And a good chunk of workers still die here. BC finds the base here in the lower right as well. Up to 36 workers killed this game, and he's going to claim the nexus of his opponents. Slowly creeping out here. He's got upgrades in his favor in a big way. Arm upgrades on the way here too, and Shox is still playing with very naked units. But again, in Starbo, upgrades are not the end-all be-all. However, they will still give you a definite advantage in this game. Beastyqt with so many workers though over his opponent. 3 bases, he's comfortably mining. There's no mules in Starbo 2, I forgot to point this out earlier. You can instantly call down an SCV. It still costs 50 minerals, costs 25 energy, but it's an instant build SCV. So you can also drop them anywhere on the map, whether it's the front lines to repair, or whether it's your newly found 4th or 3rd base. But spider mines going up everywhere. Again, these will not kill workers, but they will block the buildings trying to come down. So BC kind of secures and provides a little bit of vision towards his opponent's expansions. I like the full wall offs here out of Shox. You might think like, well, this is kind of dangerous because now he can't get into his own base, but keeps Beasty out. If Beasty can't hit and run these workers, then Shox is going to be okay. 1 or 2 cannons at each entrance point, and he should be locked solid. Beasty doesn't have any dropships out yet, but he is finally getting some made. You can upgrade, there's a research, or an upgrade you can research that's kind of cool, by the way, if you don't know about this, guys. It allows you to upgrade siege tanks in siege mode. It's kind of cool. Dropships, of course, normally can't pick those up, but hey, it's a quick save if you're under a lot of Zealot fire, I guess. But upgrades finally on the way for our Protoss player. Stuck on 3 bases, someone who took a very greedy opening to this game. You'd think he'd be catapulted a little bit further here towards the late game, but Beastyqt is the one who certainly got the map control going for him. Slowly but surely inching out. These spider mines coming out en masse are just a little too much to deal with. However, you got to keep in mind before anyone calls the OP card for Terran, Shox is still playing with a lot of tier 1 units. Beasty's kind of advancing his tech forward, he's got the upgrades, and he's on his tier 2/tier 3. Dragoons and Zealots are purely tier 1 out of the gateway. At this point, Shox really needs to start incorporating, if not some sort of Stargate units like an Arbiter, which is incredibly critical, by the way, to a Protoss composition, then at least some Reavers or some other advanced tech. There's no Immortals in the game to break siege tanks, we don't need them as badly. Arbiters, by the way, are like the end-all be-all for Protoss. They have the stasis field ability, which is like force fields on crack. And yeah, slowly pushing back here are these Dragoons. BC managed to drop some Hellions, or sorry, not Hellions, Vultures into that 4th base, and unfortunately, while the probes weren't really killed, they're just simply hiding. There's not a lot more they can do. Pushing to break this tank line, Vultures do go down, and still some Zealots unfortunately stuck behind the Dragoons. If they can start charging forward, connect to some of these tanks, friendly fire will go off, but even then, looks like the Dragoons are not going to be able to break this siege line, and Shox is losing so much here. Not only does he not have the economy behind this, he just doesn't have the tech. Good game. Game number 1. Go to Beastyqt.